Welcome to Don't Know Much About, where it all starts with a question. Today I have with me a very special guest who I believe has lived his life in the pursuit of inquiry. Dr. Judea Pearl joins me in studio to discuss all things Zionism, Israeli history, why he coined the term Zionophobia, will AI take over, and how will that look? Dr. Pearl is the Chancellor's Professor of Computer Science and Statistics at UCLA and the Director of the UCLA Cognitive Systems Laboratory. He is known internationally for his contributions to the field of artificial intelligence, human reasoning, and philosophy of science. He is the recipient of the Turing Award, which is generally recognized as the Nobel Prize of Computing. Judea Pearl is also the father of slain Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl and president of the Daniel Pearl Foundation, which he co-founded in April 2002 to continue Daniel's life work of dialogue and understanding to address the root causes of his tragedy. Dr. Pearl lectures and writes frequently on Jewish identity, the Arab-Israeli conflict, the history of Zionism, and Israel on campus. Now, 45 of his essays on these subjects are included in a recently published book titled Coexistence and Other Fighting Words, Selected Writings of Judea Pearl from 2002 to 2023. It does not at all for a moment escape me how very honored, privileged I am to be able to sit down with this man. Dr. Pearl, welcome to Don't Know Much About. It is a true privilege to sit with you.
It's great to be here.
I want to mention a few things to you before we begin. And the first is that I'm really in complete awe of you, and not because of your mind, which is brilliant, but because of your strength, your energy, your love for life, for our people, the Jewish people. So before we go into, why you coined the term Zionophobia, what is your perspective on the Arab-Israeli conflict, what is Zionism, what is anti-Zionism, I want to go back to your childhood, because where you grew up, who raised you, because I think we all are a product of our childhood. So take me back to the very early formative years of your life.
I was born in 1936 in a little town called B'nei Brak. You know B'nei Brak if you read the Haggadah, and you came to the story of the 5 sages, including Rabbi Akiva, that sat in the town of B'nei Brak and recited the story of Exodus. Anybody who read the Haggadah know the story. But for us, it was a special story because whenever my grandfather came to this passage, he would stop and look each one of us in the eyes and say, we never left home. Have we? And the reason he said it is because in 1924, he and 26 other families, Hasidic families, came to Israel and established a new town.
Called B'nei Brak.
They called it B'nei Brak. It was next to an Arab village called B'nei Brak, which they assumed retained the name of the biblical town from the time of Joshua and maybe the time of Rabbi Akiva. Yeah, It mentioned 2 or 3 times in the Bible, and then it mentioned several times in the Mishnah as a place of higher learning that Rabbi Akiva established in B'nei Brak after the destruction of the temple. So I was born there, and I was supposed to be the new Jew. The new Jew is one who is spoiled brat, who believed that the world was created for him, and him is me.
Yes.
Yes. And that is not supposed to know of anything, of any of the bad experience the Jews has suffered and are still suffering to that day. That is all a story that you can read about at your leisure in the library books that you take. In B'nei Brak there was a library, yes. And you can read about it, and I enjoy the story, but it is no longer the case because we have come to the place where we were born, and we are now free. We have independence, and we are building a state. So this is the mission, and the bad past is over.
So let me ask you this question. When I remember when reading about the new Jew of Israel, were this generation of your parents, did they try to basically shield the children from the story of it was so bad for us in the shtetls? It was filled with stories of oppression and anti-Semitism. They didn't pass these stories on to you. No,
not in person. The first time I heard about the Holocaust was when I got to the kitchen and I saw my mother crying. And I said, "What's going on?" She said, "Well, it was about 1941." And she told me, there is a war in Europe and all my family is there. And the war is not a good one. And I said, "So what? War comes, and wars come and wars go. And they are recorded in the history books, but everything turns out okay eventually. So what's the big deal?" And she told me this is a different kind of war. Yeah. And I'm worried. And she had reason to be worried, as we know. All her family perished except one sister. And we then started learning that something is not going well in Europe, primarily due to the arrival of Yaldei Tehran, the children of Tehran, which went from Poland all the way to Israel in the back door through Tehran, and they came and joined our class. And we were told that they are brothers and sisters, even though they looked totally different. They were white-skinned, and they walked meekly, and they had outbursts of anger, and we didn't realize what they went through. And we were cruel to them because they weren't like us. But we were told that we have to treat them like brothers and sisters because sometimes the British police would raid the school and try to find out who is illegal here. Wow. So we had to treat them as though they have been with us from day one.
Right. Well, you just mentioned the British presence. And, I teach the story of the Arab-Israeli conflict. And I think it's just such a remarkable opportunity to talk to you because I've read a few of your works and you talk about the British presence. And in my mind, Israel becomes a state, 1948. But what was it like before with the British? I mean, what do you remember of the British presence?
Me personally?
Yes.
I remember smiling British soldiers playing with us. We were kids, and they brought us candies that were unique, and they played with us. They even allow us to play with their bullets when they emptied the guns on the pavement, and we enjoyed that touch of a bullet. And occasionally they conducted raids on our town or curfews, and occasionally they surrounded the men for questioning, and they looked for concealed weapon in our apartment. Okay, so occasionally they had this kind of search, and they were polite. They told us where to stay, and when they checked the cupboards, and they always put back the glass where it belongs, and thanked us for being.
Wow. But when you were growing up, in your mind, were you growing up in a Jewish country? Like, where were you growing up?
I grew up in B'nei Brak.
Ah, you were growing up in B'nei Brak.
In B'nei Brak, that's my hometown.
And everybody speaking what language?
Always Hebrew.
Always Hebrew.
Except, of course, our parents, when they wanted to speak among themselves, they spoke Yiddish.
Yes.
When they want us not to understand what they are speaking about, they spoke Polish. But everything was in Hebrew, right? We knew that the relationship with the British authorities is not very friendly because we screamed in our bus away to school or to summer camps. We screamed slogans against the British government and against their policies. בוז לספר הלבן, עלייה חופשית, מדינה עברית.
Really?
I can
Look at you, it's coming back. Yeah, amazing. Wow.
בוז לספר הלבן. ספר הלבן. The white paper.
The white papers, that's right, with huge betrayal.
That's a huge betrayal. That took place in 1939.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I remember screaming that, עלייה חופשית, מדינה עברית.
מדינה עברית.
מדינה עברית, you see? We didn't say Jewish state. מדינה עברית, a Hebrew
state.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So, were you raised, would you say, largely in a secular Jewish home?
Well, my grandfather was a Hasid. So he was religious, yes. My father was already conservative to trying to parallel American congregations here. So he was sort of a compromiser. Yes, you can listen to the radio as long as the neighbors don't hear. Okay, on Shabbos. Okay, okay, because it's a certain atmosphere you have to keep in town, and you don't violate that. So do what you need to do. But don't let the neighbors hear. So that kind of, we were, I should say, in town, we had three congregations, or three movements, three types of Jews.
Three types of Jews.
Yes. We had the Orthodox.
Interesting.
They called themselves Agudat Israel. That was the name of the party. And they went to a shtibel. They prayed in the shtibel. They went to Talmud Torah, not to ordinary school. Okay, they grew pairs. And Mizrahi was what you might say conservative today.
Okay.
Compromiser, all Zionists, of course. And then the socialists. Socialists were where I went to my kindergarten. And on May 1st, I marched with everybody in town with a red flag and saying, Kumi Nairam Chelecha. You probably know that song, that international anthem of the Communist Party. Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
Well, I should teach you.
You should teach. Well, I don't know if I want to sing that. But, okay, so there are three types of Jews living in B'nei Brak at the time. They're the Orthodox, Agudat Israel. There's the Mizrahi. Mizrahi.
That's how they call themselves, yes.
And then they're the socialists, and you are in this camp with a red flag singing the international communist banner songs.
On May 1st, yes.
Of course, on May 1st, yes.
With a red flag, yes.
So, and your parents were kind of, that's fine? I mean, they
sent me.
They sent you
to this kindergarten. It was supposed to be a good kindergarten. It was called Gan L'Yaldei Ovdim, to the children of workers. People. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. I did. And the nice thing is that these three segments of the population lived in relative harmony. They did not clash among themselves. They allow, and then they let their children play with each other with no problem.
Wow.
They played together and they studied in different schools. Okay. The only clash that between them was on Sabbath, because on Friday night they drove with a horn and they closed the gate of the city. No cars can come in. And of course, I should really call them secular. Okay? They weren't socialist, but they were secular. The secular found a way to sneak through with their cars, and once in a while they chased the car and they threw stones in it. Or
Really?
Yes, yes. But once in a while, relatively speaking, it was fairly harmonious coexistence. Yeah.
Speaking of coexistence, we talk about the British, we talk about the Jewish. Let's talk about the Arab presence in the city or around the city.
Yeah, we had a village next to us called Jamusin, which really stands for buffalo, the translation. And we lived in symbiosis relationship with the Arab village. They came, they brought their fruits of their gardens to sell in our city, and they provided service, and we provided commerce. So there was a very harmonious living. I played with Arab kids until I was 10 or 11 years old. I remember them bringing their donkeys to the orchard groves, and I remember the name of the donkey was Abdul, and yeah, I loved him. And we played soccer. We played... language was a barrier.
I was just going to ask about language.
Yeah, it was a barrier, but we managed. With few words, they knew few words of Hebrew. We learned few words of Arabic, and we managed to live together until one day they didn't show up to play. And we didn't know why. Of course, we felt that something is going. We weren't totally ignorant of what's going on because we could read by that time the headlines of the newspapers, and they simply did not show up to play. And when we went to their village to find out why, all we could find is few chickens, few goats, houses totally abandoned, no bullets on any of the houses, just abandoned. Later, I found out, only when I investigated that, I found out that they had agreement with the Haganah, that they will be protected in case a war breaks out. They will be protected as long as they don't join the invading armies, okay? And somehow they lost trust in the Haganah, and they decided to leave, perhaps following the calls of their leaders, perhaps following rumors that the Jews are raping Arab ladies, and girls, and so on. I don't know the reason, but they lost trust in the protection of the Haganah, and they left.
Right. But I also, from my understanding of the history, is that a lot of these Arab villages were abandoned because they were heeding the calls of Arab leaders, the Arab Higher Committee that told them to leave, because from
there
where
are
they were
questions
sitting...
about whether such calls were really made officially, but I have my own theory of what's happening there.
I mean, it's not a question. I recently came across a memoir from a Syrian prime minister. In 1948, he wrote that we have been calling for the return of the refugees, but it is our fault that they became refugees, he writes, because we are the ones who told them to leave I found another in my research of Arab Higher Committee report sent in 1948. In 1948, it said any opposition to this order, meaning the order to leave, will be interpreted as a impediment to the holy war that we are waging. So I understand that it's complicated.
There are some criticism of that and some question about it. What makes more sense to me is the following theory. Okay, the leadership tried to get the Arab neighbors to help them, to come to their aid, and to invade. Okay? And the only way they could convince them is by saying that by presenting them hardship or danger to the Palestinian population. How do you present danger? You exaggerate the cruelty of the Jews. Yes. So they exaggerate. For instance, after Deir Yassin, they generated a rumor that the Jews rape.
Yes.
Yes, and that was
to frighten them.
Yes. Two things: to frighten the population,
yes,
and to invite the help of the invading armies.
Yes, to save them.
To save them. Yeah.
Yes. I also came across this, but so we let's just go maybe a few years prior. I think it's important because I've read some of your writing, and I think it'll be great for the listeners to hear this. So when you're about 11 years old when the UN votes in favor of Israel.
11 years old.
11 years old, and you talk about your father and the kind of the response your father has and your response. Yeah. I really want to talk about that.
We had a, I wouldn't say clash.
You're only 11.
Misunderstanding, yes.
Yes, okay.
For him, it was a big deal, a real big deal. He screamed and said, "It's all over, don't understand, it's all over." I said, "What's all over?" And he said, the diaspora, the persecution, the Khmelnytsky, everything is all over.
Yeah? It's all over.
They're going to have a state. And I said, "We have a state." My answer was, "We have a state." Okay, what are we missing? What do you want? Education, transportation, what? Healthcare. We have everything. I couldn't understand what he's screaming about, and he couldn't understand why I can't understand. So there was a curtain between us, and he shook me and said, "Don't you understand?" There was some anger in his voice that I don't understand. And I think at that point, the curtain fell, and we understood each other. He grew up in Poland. He knew what it means for a Jewish boy to go to a Polish school. Okay, I didn't know what it means. Okay, so I grew up.
You were privileged.
I was privileged.
Yes.
Spoiled brat, free, the new Jew, right? And he couldn't understand what it means to grow up free. At that moment, he understood, and I understood.
Yeah, I remember when I read that; it was very powerful for me.
Yeah, it was a moment that I remember clearly, partly because of the interaction with my father, and partly because the whole town was like silhouettes of people. I said at one point, I challenge any Jew that lived at that time not to remember the color of the radio that he or she listened to, because we all were hooked to the radio. The only time I can compare it to is Ne'ilah before Yom Kippur, before the closing of the gate, Here the decision is going to make who is going to live, who is going to die, and we are waiting for the verdict. And as the verdict came, and it said the Yugoslavia abstain. That was the closing remark. Yugoslavia abstain. We all jumped and screamed, and the whole town went into one big dance.
Really?
For the entire night, yes. This was a night where we really danced all night, not the May 14.
Wow.
May 14 was hush, hush. This was the night where everybody burst in joy.
And May 14th is hush hush because he knew that if he was that the Arabs were going to attack.
May 14th was hush hush because Ben-Gurion was worried that the British government will somehow sabotage it in some queer way, unknown way, sabotage it. So they only invited, I think, 200 or 300 invitees. They told them not to speak about it. And they came hush hush, and also he was worried about the next day. Everybody was happy, but Ben-Gurion understood that what the sacrifice is about to be made for freedom.
Mm-hmm. So the Jewish people are celebrating. They finally get freedom, independence, and it should be an answer to...
At a cost.
I understand. Yes, at a cost. 1% of the population.
1% of the population, then.
Yes.
Mainly young people, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Herzl's vision was that this was going to solve the problem of anti-Semitism.
Yes.
Yes. And you grow up really not inheriting the story of anti-Semitism so much, it seems.
No, for me, anti-Semitism was a thing in the 15th century.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then we're going to go fast forward now to when you're an adult and you are no longer in Israel. You've moved to America. When do you become aware of anti-Semitism then?
I smelled it in several times in America here.
Mm-hmm.
But it was something to laugh at. Okay?
Tell me more. Why? Why was it something?
It was ridiculous, I took a cab from New York to New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And the cab happened to be a Hungarian immigrant. And he was babbling and said, the Jews are communists and the Jews are doing everything. And I kept on saying, I said, please stop here, okay? And how much I owe you, and you drive. And I came home and I said, Ruthie, my wife, I said, they exist. They really exist.
Wow.
I was happy to find one.
Okay. But
So
you're not taking it seriously at this time.
No, I remember even one of the conferences.
But wait a second. At the same time, I'm sorry, at the same time, Israel is fighting wars against people who want to destroy it, the Arab countries. Weren't they not? Did you not think, like, what were they animated by? Was it not anti-Semitism or anti-Zionism? Was it not that? When you say they exist, what did you think in Israel that the wars were being fought?
No, they fought by are Arabs. We didn't call them Palestinian. They thought Arab.
No, because there was the Arab state. So Nasser, for instance, had these cartoons like, we're going to drive the Jew into the sea.
Oh, yes. We understood that Nasser had a problem.
With the Jews? No.
With Israel.
With Israel. Okay, so this is important. You didn't see it as a...
No, as anti-Semitic, no.
No, interesting.
They simply do not like our presence, especially our sovereignty, okay?
But you didn't attribute it to the history of it?
No, not relations. Simply,
okay.
We read what what's his name, Pasha, first name I forgot, the secretary of the Arab League. He published several threats, and he told Abba Ibn too, look, we don't want to do it, but we'll have to kill you. We'll have to fight you, and I can predict there will be rivers of blood.
Yes.
And there will be a monumental massacre here. Mm-hmm. Okay? If the UN votes yes. Mm-hmm. Okay? And we as kids, we heard that there are some plans of that sort, and we have to defend ourselves, of course, but we didn't attribute that to anything to do with anti-Semitism. It's just they don't like the presence of sovereignty, as Jewish sovereignty, in the land that they perceive to belong to the
Arabs.
The Arabs, right?
Yes. Okay, so let's go back to America. You say, Ruti, your wife, they exist, they really do.
They really do, yeah.
Okay.
They are source of jokes,
Yes.
So every time I discovered a glimpse of anti-Semites, mm-hmm. I used to point and make jokes about mm-hmm. him. I remember in one conference, there was a guy, I forgot his name now, and he made the remark that people from the Middle East are so and so. Have you noticed that people from the Middle East, probably meant to me after my talk here, are usually saying things this way? And I looked at him and I said, I come from a tribe. I actually said those words. I come from a tribe that learned how to deal with people like him. Please stand up and point a finger at him.
Wow.
Everybody wake up, please, and point a finger at him. His name is so-and-so. He sits there with his wife. Please rise and point a finger at him. That's the way to deal with them. I had the guts to do that because I felt that they are ridiculous. They're making a fool of themselves, and it's time to have some fun, to poke jokes at them. Mm-hmm. Yes. So that was my idea of anti-Semitism.
But it isn't funny anymore, really.
It isn't funny anymore, especially today.
Especially today, it is not funny.
Not funny at all.
So, let's take it to that. I would say the last 20 years, really. For me, I date the appearance of anti-Zionism on our college campuses to the early 2000s.
I have seen that in college campus 2000. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
For me, it's really, I believe there are three world events. There was the 9/11 Durban Conference and the Second Intifada. They created kind of perfect conditions for bringing this Palestinianism and anti-Zionism on our campuses. You were a professor at UCLA. I was a graduate student at UCLA. I was in the humanities. We were in the North Campus. I think you were in the South Campus, right?
Yes.
So our paths never really crossed. But I will tell you that it was very lonely to be a Zionist and a Zionist activist and a vocal Zionist. It was always very lonely. And I always felt very shamed by professors. And then I remember somebody said, but there is a professor at UCLA. He's a Zionist, and he is proud, and he also wants to fight this problem. So that's when I met you in person. It was 2008, 2009. We use the word anti-Zionism.
Yeah.
But you have coined the term Zionophobia. And I remember many, many years ago, you and I also spoke, and you said, we have to use, this is not recent. You've been using this word for many years.
Yes.
Tell me why you coined this term. How do you perceive anti-Zionism? Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, first about UCLA. Okay, I noticed it already in the 2006, 2008. I saw that the atmosphere is changing. And there was one important, very famous symposium on which I wrote a chapter in my book, in which the crowd, it was supposed to be about Gaza, and the crowd shouted, "Death to Israel, glorify to Hamas," and things of that sort. And these were Jewish professors. And I noticed that this is something is wrong here. Okay? Students wrote to me and said, how would you feel if you were a Jewish student and people shout death to Israel? Okay? And I started looking around and I asked my Jewish professors, and they were partly in agreement with those people who organized the symposium. And the administration didn't do anything. And I noticed that what's going on in academia is something very queer. We are attacked for being Zionist, and they try to solve the anti-Semitic problem. That totally we don't talk to each other. And it's very easy for them to deal with anti-Semitism for various reasons. One reason, of course, it buys them 12 years of inaction. Because if you are dealing with anti-Semitism, you have books in the library, all shelves after shelves of books on anti-Semitism. You can appoint a task force to deal with anti-Semitism.
You have trainings on anti-Semitism.
You have trainings, and they're all philosophers, and they come on Mount Olympus, and they go there and say, they smell things, and they say, yes, it is, or yes, it isn't, or it is of kind, or another kind, instead of solving the real problem, anti-Zionism. I would like to add here something that people can check on me. in the history of UCLA, in all the official documents, memos, task force reports, statements, the word Zionism doesn't appear, not even once. Zero. As if it doesn't, it is not a problem. As if we are not suffering for being Zionists. As if it does. Why? Because they don't know how to handle it. Because it will force them to take a stand before it is contaminated with the idea that it is a political issue. Mm-hmm. Zionism is a political opinion, and they don't want to go into political opinion. They just deal with things like with discrimination against religion. Mm-hmm. For instance, Islamophobia is cardinal sin in UCLA. You wouldn't go from one building to another if you declare yourself to be Islamophobe. Okay, you wouldn't live.
Oh, but I have a question. What I don't understand and what really frustrates me is I'm listening to you, and I just want to share that I'm a child of Soviet parents, and because of that, I understood very well what I was seeing. When I sniffed it, I knew that I was looking at anti-Zionism. But here's where where I get really frustrated. Is I wasn't the only one. There were students like myself who did go to the administration, who did ring the alarm bell, who did say that Zionism is not a political stance. Zionism is who we are. It's our identity. It was Zionism, I always say, it didn't appear sui generis. It just didn't appear out of nowhere. It's the heartbeat of the Jewish people. So what I don't understand is you will listen to every other minority, but you don't listen to the Jews? It's not complicated. It's not astrophysics. It's not computing AI. It really isn't complicated. So I just don't understand, why didn't they listen to these Jewish students?
It wasn't convenient for them to listen to. They wanted a way out. Are you talking about the administration?
Yeah, I'd like to know, because you said, well, the administration, they kept on using the word anti-Semitism, but it's not as if there were people who were not tipping them off.
Yeah.
There were, maybe not so many.
But at the same time, there was another movement that took place in academia. And it started, I believe, in the 1990s. The academia was hijacked by anti-Zionists.
I know.
The Department of History was hijacked. The Department of the Center for Jewish Studies.
And if you have Jewish anti-Zionists,
that's
is the biggest problem.
Right. If they wanted to ask to have some authoritative opinion about how to solve this campus unrest, they will go to who and not who else but the experts. And who are the experts? The anti-Zionist who was hired by another anti-Zionist to fill in and to hijack several departments. Once this is done, the administration couldn't do anything else but to listen to the authority and say, no, this is not anti-Semitism. It's a political opinion, and you can have one opinion or another. So that's how
take me to why the term Zionophobia?
Zionophobia, it exactly accomplished what we're just talking about. It says that it is not a political opinion. Zionophobia has accusative interpretation there, accusative tone to it. Something is wrong with you. Something similar to Islamophobia. What is Islamophobia? It's a hate of people who have a certain belief, right? We also have a certain belief. Okay? Who said religion has monopoly on human beliefs? Okay? This is part of our identity. So it says it all. It's not a political opinion. It's
an irrational fear.
Number one, it's irrational. Mm-hmm. And number two, there's something wrong with it. And if you want to hear what is wrong with it, similar to Islamophobia, it's racist. And more than that, it's genocidal. Of course, you don't say it in one word, but when people ask, what do you mean by Zionophobia? You change the whole conversation, and you are addressing their racism, not us. So they are on the accused chair, and they have to answer a certain question. You mean you deny to Jews what you grant to other minorities or to other collectives which are driven by common history? Are you really that racist? You really eliminationist? You really mean to eliminate and so forth and so forth? Yeah. So the conversation goes toward accusing them of their wrong ideology. Go ahead.
I'm all for putting them in the accusatory chair. I have a question. Have you ever tried it?
Constantly.
And so how does it go?
Okay, I'll tell you a story. When I was in Doha, I was interviewed by an Al Jazeera.
You were interviewed by Al Jazeera?
Sure.
I love this. Let's go.
No, I was interviewed many times by Al Jazeera.
Okay.
But in Doha, it was special because he came to interview me because I was a dialogue maker, and he wanted to see to publish something about me and my Judea Pearl Foundation and so forth. So he sat down, and then he asked me, "Are you a Zionist?" And I said, "Isn't everybody?" He fell from his chair.
You said, "Isn't everybody?"
Isn't everybody Zionist? Yeah. Is it a question? Yeah. The normative things in the world is to be a Zionist. I didn't know. All I said is, "Isn't everybody? And aren't you?" And he fell from the chair. He didn't publish the interview. No. Okay. So why did I say it? Because I take it as a normative. It's normative to be a Zionist. Anybody who is anti-Zionist, something is wrong with you. You look a decent person. How can you be a xenophobe? Mm-hmm. That's my style.
I understand. I've also come to the conclusion that another strategy I think that has been misguided was that we had asked the non-Jews, we had asked the universities to, be pro-Israel or to be Zionists. And I don't think I don't think that we need to ask them to be Zionists. I think the request is actually much simpler. It's to reject Zionophobia. It's to reject anti-Zionism. That really should have been that should be. It should be.
Yes. It's exactly what I'm asking the administration. And
we don't need you to love Israel. I don't need you to walk around saying that you're a Zionist. I don't need that.
There are two ways they can say it. They can say it in a form of, I found the desire to eliminate Israel to be disturbing. That's what Martha Pollack said, and she was the president of Cornell. Okay, and she's the only administrator that had the guts to say that and say against BDS. By the way, she said it and said they are confusing the criticism of the state of Israel of policy and the real very existence of Israel, which I found to be disturbing. Okay? Number one, first person. I, as a president of this university, have a right to express my opinion and what I consider to be academic discourse and what is not. And I tell you, I find this disturbing. That was enough to shut them down for 2 years in Cornell.
What year was that? Do you know?
Yes. I know.
I'll look it up. We'll look it up. That's fascinating. Okay, well,
it's in my book.
Okay, wonderful.
Look at Martha Pollack.
Martha Pollack, wonderful. Well, as we're wrapping up, a few things. By
the way, there's another way we can say it. They can say it.
Yes.
The chancellor can say a large majority of the Jewish faculty and students see Zionism and the existence of Israel as integral part of their identity as Jews. Trampling on the identity of such a large part of body, students and faculty body, is not the kind of behavior I would like to see in this university.
That would be ideal. But as we are wrapping up, I just, you're a well-known figure, and people probably have an idea of you from afar. But I got to know you a little bit closer the last few days. I joined you for a Havdalah celebration, which you do now weekly. You gather for a Havdalah celebration, and you sang songs. I didn't know that you have such a beautiful voice, and I didn't know. yeah, get ready. I didn't know that that when you were in the IDF, you were also in the choir. You were conducting, right?
Two things. First, I was in a choir.
Yes.
In basic training.
Yes.
And then, in the last year of my service, they sent me to study choir conducting in the Haifa Conservatorium. Yes, at their expense.
Of course. So, for my viewers and listeners, it's quite something. You travel with this picnic bag, and in this picnic bag is the Havdalah candle, the Shabbat candles, the spices, the prayers, the candles, of course, the wine glass, all of it. But also, you have some documents with you that you always keep, and they are the first edition in the newspaper of Emile Zola's J'accuse, I Accuse, Herzl's Judenstadt, the first edition, letters from Ben Gurion. Tell me. I mean, it's endearing, but also there's something to it.
Yes. I'm a book collector. So I collect science books.
Science, well, of course.
I have a first edition of Newton and Galileo, things like that.
Oh, wow.
I collect them because I like to touch, the closeness of the ideas. If I touch a book, I feel close to the idea behind it. So that's a weakness of mine. And then when we come to the history of Zionism, I keep it partly because it's a conversation piece, okay, and partly because it's a powerful part of my argument and debate with the Palestinians.
Do you talk to them often?
Sure.
Okay, no, I had
a debate with Magdisi a few years ago in the UCLA, part of the debate club. Yeah, and I conducted a Jewish-Muslim dialogue with a Pakistani ambassador, and so I talk to them, and I enjoy their embarrassment when I pull out the letter of Ben Gurion and show them that Ben Gurion, right? This is a very important document. It's Ben Gurion when he was okay, let me stop. Many of our adversaries claim that the early Zionists dismissed or didn't even know that there are Arab population here. And that the slogan is a land without people
for a people
to people without land. Okay? No Zionist said it, by the way. Okay, but so they create an image that we were ignorant.
Right.
We came to this land as thinking it's empty. I have a letter of Ben Gurion, who was exiled by the Ottoman authorities to New York, and in 1917. He writes to his friend Ben Tzvi, he spent his time in the library, and he goes over the Ottoman census, and he counts the number of Palestinians. At that time they called them the Arabs. Yeah?
Arabs. Mm-hmm.
Village by village, town by town, and he comes out with a number. And I have his number, okay? A summation part, when he summed them all up, and here is the estimate. Without the Golan Heights, we have 700,000. With the Golan Heights, 900,000. Okay, so I have the equation down there. I use it normally to surprise my adversaries in a debate, and also it's a good conversation piece in a Havdalah.
Yes, it was wonderful. And so when I joined you for the Havdalah, you do a lot of singing. You have such a wonderful voice in Yiddish and Russian songs and Hebrew. So what is your favorite song? Not a Jewish song.
I have so many, really. Normally in Kiddush, I sing with my family. I sing Hasidic song. I sing a song like Yabba Bam Bam, Yabba Bam, and I give it a little schmaltz there. Yabba Bam Bam, Yabba Bam. And I sing Chiribim, Chiribom, Chiribim Bom 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 Bom. I sing Ish Hasidaya. Ay bidi bidai bidi bidai dai 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 dai. Yeah, so Hasidic songs are part of the ceremony. Then we sing some Hebrew songs. I like to sing Donai Donai in Hebrew. I sing Yerushalayim Shel Zahav.
I love that song.
Well, you see, these are the songs that both Israelis and American can sing because they are part of the American Jewish culture.
Yeah.
And it was really, it was clear to the synagogues here that if they pick up Israeli songs, they have content to teach their children. Without the Israeli songs, what can you offer them?
Yeah.
Lax and bagels? Exactly. Is that what being Jewish is?
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're really, really, really out of time now. But I have one more question, and that has nothing to do with Israel or anything Jewish. But I can't sit with someone who won the Turing Award and not ask you about AI. And when are we going to be taken over?
When I cannot answer. If we're going to be taken over, I can answer yes. We will be taken over. Can we prevent it? I don't know. We do not have today any means of preventing this from happening once we give the computer the intelligence we want to give the computer, namely the curiosity to find out what's going on in the world and to feel I'm in control of the world because I understand the world. We want the computer to understand the world, which means we have to insert in the computer the curiosity to understand the world. And once we insert this curiosity, we are part of the environment that he or she wants to control, and we could become the pets of the master. Yeah. And we don't know how to prevent this. One day we maybe learn how to prevent it, but right now we don't have the means.
Okay.
Because the two desirable the desirable feature of computer that we want to see in AI, namely curiosity and autonomous behavior, conflict with...
We do want to see this, you think?
Sure, because we want to have a companion, a good computer companion to help us in our everyday life. Right? Don't you want to have a good secretary that you can talk to, and she or he will be will be very helpful and understand exactly what you want with one word. And we want to have that apprentice to our life. We do want, and at the same time, it leads to horrible consequences.
And when you were studying computer science and did you foresee this? Did you foresee where we are today?
No. What we see today was a surprise to me because I couldn't imagine or couldn't predict that with simple algorithms like we see in machine learning today, which is built totally on extrapolating to the most likely next word, we can achieve so much intelligence. That was a surprise to me.
Wow. Well, Dr. Pearl, thank you so much for joining me on the show. I'm very honored. I'm very privileged. I think it's a treat for everyone to listen to you. I'm also going to make a big pitch for your book, Coexistence, that everybody could buy on Amazon, which is a collection of your best writing, really.
Totally.
And thank you again for joining me on this very special episode of Don't Know Much
Thanks for
About.
having me. Really a pleasure.